Sorry, Saints fans, there's no intro, there's no cold open. I'm cold enough as it is looking at this roster. What is going on? I've been saying this now for the past 3 years with the New Orleans Saints. And Mickey Loomis, I love you and everything, but geez Louise, sometimes you have to look at your roster. You have to look at the direction of the franchise and say to yourself, okay, this is not a legit contending football team. It's time. I really respect the idea of saying, you know what, we're trying to win football games. We're going to do everything we can. But there's a time and a place for that. And this is not the time and place to keep doing that. This roster needs to be reset and overhauled. They're getting a little bit older. They're getting really expensive. They're capped. They just keep moving things into the future. That Piper has come to fruition, and now they are really struggling, and they have been for a minute. This is not Drew Brees at the helm. They have a young quarterback. They need to be able to surround him with help, and they don't have the ability to do that. So for that long, I guess technically we had an intro with that long-winded sort of thing, but let's get into this. Let's talk about it in more detail. What do I think they need to do? Free agency, the draft, all those things. This roster, it is a bit of a mess. And it starts with the upfront and this offensive line, which is just not very good. They can't get a whole ton of push in their run game. Yes, Alvin Kamara is not prime Kamara or anything like that. We need to look at running back too, but this offensive line is doing him no favors. Injuries have been a thing with Eric McCoy. I would say as much as Eric McCoy is a key cog to this offensive line, like when he's healthy, you can tell a difference in this offensive line. A very good center, but he has not been able to stay healthy. He is one guy that I do think would have a trade sort of value here. And that would be something that I would be doing either this offseason or very soon. I know he's out for the year, so you can't really trade him at this point before the deadline. So I don't expect that. But this offseason, I'd be looking to move him because of that injury risk and with the direction that they're going, the cap situation, all those things. They got to clear up some more money. Eric McCoy is somebody I would be looking to move on from. Guard-wise, Trevor Penning, Cesar Ruiz, both have been big time, unfortunate busts for this football team. It's time for them to get a new change of scenery. Maybe it'll work out best for them. And overall, though, for this football team, it's not working out. They are getting Gooba stomped, either pushed back Cesar Ruiz constantly. Trevor Payne just doesn't have the feet to hang up with the quick interior guys or off the edge, of course. They need to invest in the guard position. Nick Salivari's been injured mostly. You got Dylan Radins, who's been all banged up too, but I feel like he's really been their best interior offensive lineman. Luke Fortner actually looks good in replacement of Eric McCoy thus far. We'll see. Okay, maybe he's a guy that they could bring back on the cheap. They're probably going to need to, and then they can draft and develop and go from there. Their tackle position, though, does look pretty good. Fuaga and Banks have been solid this season. I actually think I've been pretty impressed with Banks thus far, especially as a rookie, and I think he's got a real chance to be a very solid left tackle for this football team. Same thing with Fuaga. That 1-2 at the tackle position is one area that they can hang their hats on and say, at least we have decent starters at the moment. I'm not sure if they have an elite tackle between those two guys, but at least they've got some guys that can start and be solid players for them on their offensive line. This interior, though, has to get better between the draft, free agency. It's an overhaul needing to happen. Let's go on to the wide receiving room now, which this is something that also needs a little bit of an overhaul this offseason. You got Chris Olave under contract going in that fifth-year deal. I am guessing they're going to try to give him an extension to lower his cap hit for this next season, which would make sense. I think Olave is a really good wide receiver. Is he got the strongest hands? No. And that's okay, but he's a good route runner. He's a separator and somebody that I do think is a solid wide receiver too. My big gripe on this was the fact that all the draft capital that they gave up to go up and get Chris Olave, like that to me is the big question and the problem and why he's not really exceeded those expectations. He's had injuries too throughout his career. He is a good wide receiver. It just, has he exceeded those expectations? No. And that's a bit of unfortunate. I wouldn't blame him for that. I'd blame Mickey Loomis and how much he gave up to go up and get him. Now, Rashid Shaheed, dangerous wide receiver, no doubt about it. He's a free agent. I think he's somebody that could get traded. I think there's a really good chance that he gets traded at the trade deadline. And honestly, that would be something that I would do 100%. Even if you only get a fifth-round pick for him, you need to get whatever you can because you're going to end up losing him this offseason anyway. So trade him, get whatever draft capital you can. Somebody is willing to go and get Rashid Shaheed because he's one of the best deep threats in the NFL right now. Brandon Cooks, at this point too, he's somebody you got to move on from, in my opinion. I mean, I love the classic helmet right there in picture. Want to keep that one. I do think, though, it's time to find an upgrade there. You got Devon Vele, which they also overpaid for there, in my opinion. And Vele, maybe, later down the line, they can use him a little bit more. Trey Palmer, I like. He's somebody, when he gets healthy, certainly has viability for them next season. Could be a wide receiver 3 for them. Jalen Polk, Bub Means, we'll see about those guys. Right now, though, this wide receiver room needs some more draft help. We'll have to look at that. But it is a good wide receiver class to need a wide receiver. And then on to the tight end room. It's been a big disappointment. Jawan Johnson has struggled. Oh, my goodness. The drops have been such a huge problem. And look, maybe he can get better with that. And that's something that from season to season, there's some variance and stuff like that. I'm not saying he's a bad football player. He's had a rough season. And when it comes down to the contract, it's going to be hard to move him. At the same time, though, I'm going to try to do everything that we can to improve this roster. And it is something that they need to really consider in moving on from him, trading him, doing whatever they can to free up more cap and looking at this for the future. Foster Moreau, Taysom Hill, Jack Stoll, all free agents too after this season. Hill's been injured a good amount. Moreau's been injured. So it's just the reliability to in this wide receiver room this tight end room has not been good either. That's been a constant theme for this football team. So we need to improve that. On to the running back room. Been a big disappointment in here. And they've only keeping 2 running backs really active. Kendre Miller's injured right now. He's done for the season. Alvin Kamara's not been himself. You got Devin Neal, who's, not been used enough yet at this point to really understand how he's going to be, utilized going forward. Maybe we'll get more of a chance to see with Kendre Miller now out for the season what Devin Neal looks like. And I am excited to see that. That's going to be a big thing for this football team. Running back is still going to be a need, though, going into this offseason between free agency and the draft. See what you can do. You just have other bigger areas that this team has to address. And that's why it's not going to be my number one need. I'm not going to be going after Jeremiah Love or anything like that early in the draft because they have to build the trenches. Both sides of the football field. They need another wide receiver. They could possibly use more help in the secondary. Like linebacker is a big need for them. Like they just have so many other needs that I can't justify that at the moment. Let's go on to the quarterback position. And this is a conversation I'm sure you're waiting for to have and everything. Where do we go? Is Tyler Shook? Do we have to replace him? Here's my thing. I don't care if Tyler Shook plays terrible for the rest of the season. I am not drafting a quarterback with where they are at unless there is a quarterback that is surefire in the draft and you're picking at number 1 overall. And the reasoning for this and the why I feel confident doing this video, I've been waiting on the Saints for a minute. It's because I kind of want to see some of these guys partially, and Shuck hasn't played a full game yet. However, when I look at this roster, when I look at the cap situation, the coaching staff, the GM, there need to be changes. And that, to me, this signals a team that you go into 2027, and that's really the area where I would say then you start looking at a quarterback, because going into 2026, they need to get their cap in order. This is a football team that really cannot surround a young quarterback with the pieces that they need to be feeling confident that they can get a full evaluation. So why spend another high draft pick on a quarterback that makes no sense to me? Continue to develop Tyler Shook, do what you can, and then you go from there, right? Give him a full offseason and go into 2027 with a redefined cap situation, have more of an understanding on what you have with Tyler Shook, Spencer Rattler, and then you make that decision, right? That is really my opinion on this. You cannot, it doesn't make sense from so many different perspectives to go out and just spend another first round pick or, another draft pick on a quarterback in general. That's where I'm at with the quarterback situation right now. I'm sorry, Saints fans, if I'm being a little hard, but this is a little pent-up rage over the past 3 years. Again, you go back to my videos over the past several seasons. It doesn't take a rocket scientist. I mean, I'm not the GM. I'm not anybody. I hate to harsh on this, but it's like you could see this coming a mile away. It was just one of those things. I really do. And I love the Saints, but I feel like for what they have as a roster and the amount of cap that they have one of the worst cap situations in the NFL. And they have one of the worst rosters in the NFL. So something's not adding up here, and changes need to be made. And when you look at this defensive line, they're not getting enough out of this defensive line either. But I will say the defensive line is actually coming along a little bit with Chase Young now fully healthy, and he has been fantastic. I've watched all the games, and man, he's been a lot more consistent with his motor this season, and he's getting after the quarterback at a high level. He's playing like a superstar. He's playing like rookie Chase Young and coming out of Ohio State that we expected Chase Young to play. And on his contract, man, I know a lot of Saints fans were a little worried about this. This is one contract that I actually really do like. And Chase Young is somebody that if he continues to play like this, he's outperforming his contract. So that's one good news that you do have here with Chase Young. Now, Carl Granderson's a guy that I do think is also a very solid edge rusher. He's not the most flashy guy, but he gets pressure, and he's somebody that I think is a good number 2 pass rusher. Is he a true number 1? No, that's the thing. You're like looking for a number 1 pass rusher. He's not that guy, but he is a solid player. Cam Jordan at this point, I mean, he's a Ring of Honor, Hall of Famer type of player. He's going to be a dude, though, more than likely retirement after this season. Just not really the Cam Jordan that we know of in the past and stuff like that. But obviously, great career, can celebrate that and everything. But Chris Rumph has been better, and he's been more of a defiant player overall and somebody that I think they need to get him more snaps over Cam Jordan, even at this point. On the interior of the defensive line, this is another area that they're going to have to look to address now. Vernon Broughton from Texas, 3rd-round selection. When he gets healthy, next season, give him an off season, get stronger. He's somebody that hopefully his impact is felt a little bit more. I would say, though, that they should move on from Devon Gottschalk. They could save a little bit more money there, and then they can draft somebody in the late rounds as a nose tackle to help them out there. You got Nathan Shepard, who's been solid. Ideally, he's a good backup. He's having to play as more of a starter this season for them with Gottschalk. Just I don't think is really fitting the bill there. Brian Brzee. Brzee's come along. I would say Brzee's still struggling in run defense a lot, but as a pass rusher, I see him. He's made more plays in the run game too this year. He is a solid starter. I don't know if you can quantify and say he's, like a dominant first-round pick or anything like that, but he's definitely a dude that at least I feel like can play for this football team for their rookie contract and get some sort of value there. Jonathan Buller's been a rotational player. You got Christian Boyd also can be a rotational player for this football team. It is something we'll look at finding a nose tackle. It's not going to be probably a high draft pick for me unless it's just BPA. Then we go on to the linebacking room here where this is a huge need. Demario Davis, getting older now, and he doesn't have that same athleticism, but he's still a really good football player. He's been the one presence on their defense, too, that has been a consistent force and definitely still a captain for this football team as well. So Davis probably also going to be looking at retirement after this season. A great career he's had. As a Jets fan, I'm still mad that they let him go. He's been a great football player and somebody that also very much in a Ring of Honor type of career for this Saints team. Pete Warner, I would suggest moving on from him at the trade deadline. He's another guy that move on, get what you can, save a little bit of money, let Danny Stutzman be the guy. All right. From what I've seen in very limited quantity sample size, I think Stutzman certainly has the chance to be a good, solid starter for them. So that's what I would do here, and then have Isaiah Stallberg be a depth piece for them. And he's an exclusive restricted. You can bring him back on the cheap for special teams purposes as well, but it is going to be a draft need no matter what. They're going to have to look at this for sure between free agency and the draft. Then we go on to the cornerback room here. The defensive secondary has been a little shaky. It's been a little up and down. McKinstry's been really at the heart of that. Like McKinstry, when he plays a really good game, their secondary does really, really well. However, when he struggles, things tend to struggle. Because McKinstry's had to step up and go up against wide receiver ones for a good chunk of this season. Alontae Taylor has been playing on the outside and in the slot, and he's helped out too in that regard. But Taylor's still a dude that gets beat in coverage one too often. And especially if you're looking at giving him a contract with where the Saints are at, I'm just not really opposed. I'm not really looking at that. So that's really where I'm at with Alontae Taylor. Not a bad football player or anything like that. But for the contract that he could end up getting out there and for where the Saints are at from an overall cap situation, I'm not really looking to pay him. You got Isaac Yiadom on a team-friendly deal. I'm cool with keeping him on the roster and as a good solid like corner 3-4, ideally like a corner 4. I think Quincy Riley is somebody that I would get starting out there actually sooner rather than later. Alontae Taylor is another guy that I would consider trading at the deadline here and having Quincy Riley step up, put Yiadom in the slot. Like, do what you got to do. But Riley, to me, is a starting cornerback and somebody I feel like can get in there right now and help out this team with Kool-Aid McKinstry. So McKinstry had some really good games, and he's also had some really bad games. He's got to iron out some of that consistency there. I still feel like he's going to be a solid player. And if nothing else, I still think he's the best cornerback in this room right now, even though Riley could compete there for that spot down the line to be a really good corner for them. It is something, though, in the draft we could look at free agency, trying to find some help, especially Alontae Taylor being a free agent. Safety-wise, Jonas Sanker, he's another guy who's had his moments, but I would say the good outweighs the bad more on Sanker. There was one game where he got beat on a deep post. I'm trying to blank on that, but I'm mixing up because I watch all 32 teams, all the games for all 32 teams. So sometimes part of me, I do blank up on some games for each teams when I'm going about this. But there was one play that sticks out where Sanker did get beat on a deep post. But besides that, he's been pretty dang good this season, especially as a rookie. I've been very impressed with him making plays around the box. He has been good in coverage as well for the most part, and somebody that I feel as a core player should help them out. And then you look at Justin Reed, who's been more of a disappointment. I've not seen him make a whole ton of plays this season. He's gotten beat at coverage too at times. Definitely a little bit of a disappointment from a signing. He's still not a bad football player, so I don't want to harp on Reed too much. He's under contract. They really can't get out of that a whole ton. Jordan Howden, actually, Howden's been pretty impressive too in a limited role when he had to step up in for Reed too. Blackman injured. He's a good football player, but he's had some injuries and stuff. He's a free agent. He'll probably go somewhere else and get a prove-it contract elsewhere to be a starter possibly. So that's my guess on this. This safety room is the one area that I'd say between Howden, Reed, and Sanker all under contract. Not something I'm going to prioritize in the draft or free agency. Let's go on to the coaching staff. Talk GM as well. If I haven't already mentioned on Mickey Loomis, I think it's time. Simply put, I would be looking to get a new GM in here. The way that they've handled the cap situation and not really looking at the roster insane and being realistic with themselves and looking at the future for this football team. I totally respect trying to win now and all those sort of things. But you also have to know when enough is enough and when you need to reset. And that has been the problem with Mickey Loomis, is getting ahead of the curve, getting ahead of the trend. He hasn't done that. And some of the draft picks, too, have not been ideal. You know, you can lean your head on the Marshawn Lattimore draft and going Ryan Branchek and all those, players that they got and some of the drafts they've had in the past. Like, he has had on some really good drafts in his past. No doubt about it. He has a track record of some fantastic drafts. But the cap situation, recent drafts, it all adds up to a point where it's like, yeah, I think it's time to move on. I think it's time to get a little bit more of a new face in here to help rebuild this organization and overall their cap health and situation, because right now it's not been good and things haven't been working out. You need to hit the reset button a little bit. Wish Mickey Loomis nothing but the best. It is time, though, in my opinion. Coaching-wise, here's another area we need to talk about. Kellen Moore, I've not been super impressed. I'll just be real, between the play calling, some iffy situations with the way he's handled this quarterback drama and all these sort of things, I've not been super impressed. But it is still early. Maybe this new GM, if they bring in a new GM, or if Mickey Loomis is still the GM, we'll see what happens. At this point, though, I will say that Kellen Moore could be a one-and-done head coach. I'd love to see Doug Nussmeier get the play calling opportunity now at this point. Like, let him call the plays. I'm just kind of need to see. I really would love to see Nussmeier out there as the play caller. Staley on the defensive side, he's been okay. He's been a guy, it's like, okay, he's kind of filling in there. I don't know. Maybe long-term they might want to find a new defensive coordinator too. Right now, though, this coaching staff is not like insane impressing me either. So there's that. We'll see what happens. They've been able to develop some guys, so I can't completely diss them for that. It's just something where I don't know. I don't know if Kellen Moore is going to get another opportunity after this season. Let's go on to the free agency period now, and let's go and talk about this, because every single year, I know I seem to make these wild cuts and stuff like that, and Mickey Loomis just continues to say, you know what, we're just going to continue to hit the Piper down the line. Come on, it's time. They need to make some moves. I'm letting go of Alvin Kamara straight up. I know it's not a whole ton of save, but it is what it is. I just think they need to get younger out here and give somebody else an opportunity, like Kendre Miller or Devin Neal, cheap free agent signing. Kamara at this point, I just don't really see it. So there's that. I get it. He's a locker room guy. And he's been a dude that he plays tough. I love Kamara. He really has been a core guy, but maybe it'd be best to move on. Let Kamara go to a team like the Chiefs where he can compete right away and help somebody else. This football team needs to kind of figure a new direction. Eric McCoy, same thing here. McCoy's a great football player. He's just been an injury sort of thing. You could trade him. He's somebody that at the trade deadline or this offseason, well, actually not the trade deadline since he's injured, but in the offseason, get what you can from McCoy, and then you can look at getting a little bit younger, getting a little cheaper and stuff like that, and just trying to find some more reliability at center position. Cesar Ruiz, I'm trying to trade him at the trade deadline if they can, or in this offseason. Even if you have to split the salary, which I'm doing in this case scenario, and maybe even give up a draft pick to do it. Like, I'm serious. They need to be able to clear the cap. and also just figure to improve this interior offensive line straight up. Juwan Johnson, another one where I would say split the salary, trade him, a team you could trade with to get like a 5th-round draft pick for Juwan Johnson. And then it would be very lucrative for a team to say, all right, for $4.5 million, if you take that, we'll take the other 4.5 range and we'll deal with that and we'll give you a 5th-round pick for that. Like, I think they could do something like that. And that's what I would be looking to do. Brandon Cooks, we're just going to cut straight up. We're going to cut Pete Warner, Devon Gottschall straight up as well. Free a little bit of money. I know it's a lot of dead cap to take on as well, but it's already on the books anyway, so you just got to deal with it. We're looking at getting a clean cap for 2027 and 2028 because my view on this is there's not a whole ton they can do for this season and into 2027. It's really when you look into 2028 and you say to yourself, okay, you could draft the quarterback in 2027, maybe trade back like ideally in the draft in this year's class, get more draft capital. You set yourself up for drafting a quarterback in 2027, maybe a Julian Sayin or an Arch Manning or whatever, right? I don't want to sit here and say the quarterback class next year is going to be better than this year. You don't know that. But I would just say in terms of where they're at as a cap situation, do something like that. Get themselves set up for 2027, 2028, where you then have a rookie quarterback to be able to surround him with help going into 2028, going into year number 2 for that rookie quarterback. And yes, that's what I'm looking to do. And then your window opens up and you're saying, wow, we have cap space. We have a young quarterback. Okay, things are going in the right direction. But that's really where this team is at. And that's really hopefully the point I'm trying to get across here. I can't beat the needle in a haystack enough. For Shaheed, I would trade, though, right now. Trade him right now. He's one guy that I think that has the most trade value on this roster because of the cap situation and what a team could, even if they're just getting him as a placeholder for this season for a win-now team, you could probably get a 4th-round pick for him. Let's go on to the restructures. We're going to have to still restructure a couple of guys. I want to be very careful with this. I'm going to do it with Chase Young, Carl Granderson, both guys I'm comfortable being on the roster going into 2027. And with Chase Young, we'll take 13 and then 9 with Carl Granderson. That gives us some savings of around $16 million between those two guys. And then we go on to the contract extension portion with Chris Olave. I'm going to give him an extension. I'm going to give him 4 years, $96 million. And I base this on kind of like a Courtland Sutton type of deal, just $1 million average per more. So for a wide receiver 2, like Courtland Sutton in the same category as type of football, they're different football players, but what they mean to the team, I think Chris Olave is worth it in that range. So this restructure bonus, and basically what that does is it takes the $15 million 5th-year option and that spreads it over that term. And that allows us to save the $8 million for this overall cap savings. Then we go on to the team re-signs. As you can see, it's a lot of red here. I'm just bringing back Luke Fortner, Chris Rumph, and Jonathan Bullard. Going to be some depth and maybe some placeholder starters between Fortner and Rumph can be great depth off the edge there. And Fortner, I think, can start for them at center if need be, and we can draft somebody there. Into the restricted and exclusive restricted period now, where we're just going to basically bring back all these guys and practice squad. These are just dudes where they're going to fit some depth. They're going to compete. Not really any of this money is going to be guaranteed, like maybe like $100,000 sort of figure. They're going to come into training camp. They're going to compete for roster spots. Blake Rupe's the one guy I'm going to let go. Maybe bring him back very, very cheap and he competes. But once again, very unlikely that any sort of big guarantees on that. Rupe's really struggled this season. He seems to miss a kick every single game. So that's something where they're going to have to try to find an upgraded kicker. That would be my suggestion would be UDFA. Do what you can. Go look at other leagues. You name it. You got to do it because Blake Rupe, you got to bring in some competition there. On to the outside free agent signings. Yes, we're going to have to be very strategic and we're going to have to be very budget conscious. We only have like $15 million, $16 million, and $6 million of that I allocate towards the draft spend. So we have about $10 million of effective cap, which we're going to use on guys like Brian Robinson, who gets an opportunity. There are going to be guys who always are. There are guys who are taking the league minimum to get a chance to start and to prove themselves to get a contract later or a bigger contract. Brian Robinson could be one of those guys. John Simpson, Will Hernandez, cheap veterans that you can bring in here. Simpson coming off a rough year for the Jets, so let's go and get him. Maybe he can bounce back a little bit. Will Hernandez, who's been injured, but he's a good football player when he's out there. And if nothing else, can be a solid veteran for this football team at right guard, and we can draft somebody too. Daniel Bellinger, give him an opportunity, right? He gets a chance to start. Theo Johnson has been replaced Daniel Bellinger over for the Giants, so Bellinger now gets an opportunity to be the starter for this football team. We'll definitely still look at the draft. He brings in somebody, though, where I feel confident can fit in the room right away and help you out, get cheaper at the tight end position. Linebacker on the defense side, Christian Harris. He's another guy who's been banged up, looking for an opportunity to start out of Houston. He's probably going to look for a fresh start. So this would be a good opportunity for him on a cheap 1-year contract to get a prove-it situation for him. And then you got D. Alford, same thing, looking for a little bit of a prove-it scenario, gives you some depth in the slot. So if you're not comfortable with either Yadam or like if you want to rotate those guys in between Riley and Yadam, then Alford can play in the slot. Yadam can rotate in there with Riley, just depending on how things go. But I want to build some depth there and get a veteran in that cornerback room. That takes us right to the brim there. All right. And let's look at the roster before the draft here. Highlight the needs still. The offensive line, we need to invest in it. Center, guard, huge investments we need to make. And then at wide receiver, we need to make an investment here. Absolutely. This is an early draft capital need, just like the interior of the offensive lineman. At least the offensive line, I think we could roll out these 5 guys. Still want to invest in it. And trust me, we're going to be throwing a couple of picks at that. I'm not touching the quarterback situation. Running back, ideally, maybe. But at the same time, Kendra Miller's good. He's just been injured. Brian Robinson is a solid back. And with an improved offensive line that we can do this offseason, that would be more sequential than drafting a running back, in my opinion, at this point. Devin Neal, we could also see more we have in him. Wide receiver, tight end, interior offensive line. Those are the priorities here on offense. Defense. Defensive interior is still going to be something I look at. It's not going to be the highest priority here. My view is let's improve the linebacker position. All right, if we can find a really good stop and run dude, that's going to help us out in that regard immensely, because that is definitely a problem for them. So finding a dominant linebacker would be pretty nice and help them out. Either which way, either a dominant linebacker or a dominant DT, you need a little bit of help up front there in that interior / overall in that positional groups. So cornerback, going to be an area we could draft some depth. That's going to be a later round need. And then a safety, I feel good about. So that's the one area I'm not super worried about. I think linebacker is going to be taking the number 1 precedence on this defense. Depth off the edge, depth on the interior at corner, also areas we can look at. So enough livering and blabbering and harshing. It is draft time. Let's go. And we're going Arvell Reese, the most dynamic, insane player in college football right now. Oh, man. When you watch Arvell Reese, you just immediately get heated up. You're like, oh, this guy is a dog. He has that insane mentality. He has that strength profile you look for. He's got long arms. And, man, he plays huge out there. And whether it's rushing the passer, whether it's up the middle as a run defender, even in coverage, he has some flashes out there. He is just one of the most dominant players right now in college football. He has burst onto the scene and taken it, and then some, Tom Cruise style out there. It's been mission impossible trying to deal with Arvell Reese out here. He is exceptional. And I'm not passing up on a talent. I would even consider taking Arvell Reese over Ruben Bain Jr. And yes, if you're picking a number 1 overall, here's my recommendation. I will say this in quotes. I don't do trades with this. And when you see some of those trade picks down there, I'm going to talk about those here in a minute. But I would really recommend New Orleans trade down at all accounts. It just doesn't matter. Even if you lose the trade, I don't care. If you get an extra second-round pick and you have to trade down 3 spots, I still think they could get Arvell Reese from the number 1 overall, or from that number 1 overall pick down to number 4 or something. Do what you have to do. Trade back, get some free picks, because this team needs it. They need it bad. They need to have younger guys on rookie contracts while they continue to build their cap back up, and also just building for the future. And then setting themselves up, as I mentioned before, for like 2027, and then possibly evaluating your quarterback position as you get more cap, as you build a better roster. And a guy like Arvell Reese is an ideal cornerstone player, in my view, to help out this team in run defense day 1. Like, he's going to help them out there. And as a pass rusher, too, in rotation, he's going to help that out as well. So he could be that 3rd, 4th pass rusher right away in this room, too. So you can get Harris. You can get Stutzman out there, and if they're playing great, fine. Put Reese off the edge. They can do multiple things with Arvell Reese. He's just such a good football player. I am comfortable taking him in the top 3 of this draft. And he's a linebacker, but I think he could do everything out there on the defense. Then we go on to Casey Concepcion from Texas A&M. He's been super dynamic this season, obviously with the ball in his hands, but as a deep threat this year, he's been really, really good. And I'm looking for that Rashid Shaheed replacement. He doesn't have that type of speed. He doesn't have the long speed that Shaheed has. but he's a really good separator. He's got that quick twitch ability, obviously, to make you miss and stuff. But as a route runner, too, he's really come along this season and been really, really good football player there for the Aggies. Yes, Mario Craver's phenomenal too, and it helps out for Casey Concepcion, I'm sure. But Concepcion, in his own right, has been very, very good for the Aggies and somebody that I do think can be a day one impact for this football team. Then we go on to Apani Laulu from Oregon, the center. He's got his issues. Okay, he's not a perfect prospect, and center's a position that is devalued in the NFL, unfortunately. I think it's a great position and something that's underrated. But you see a lot of these centers go between pick like 55 to 70 in that range. So I do think there's a really good chance that they could get a Parker Brailsford, even though I think he's a first round pick. Apani Laulu. Laulu, in my opinion, in this range makes a lot of sense for Laulu. I don't think he's as good of a prospect as Brailsford, but I do think he could be an impact right away for whoever drafts him. And somebody with some good power. He's got solid overall profile. He's not the biggest guy or anything like that. I don't think he's going to be like your wide zone blocker. So if they get a new coach and he wants to run a wide zone scheme, I don't know if he's that type of guy or anything like that. But I certainly think he can be a really good interior offensive lineman and a good center for this team going into the future. They need to invest in it. He can sit behind Fortin or two if he's not ready to go right away. He's still a young player too that can develop. Next pick, I'm going interior as well here. I'm going with Jaden Roberts from Alabama. There's a little controversy with Roberts, of course. He's been kind of rotating in and out for that offensive line for Alabama. Roberts, though, has so much upside. His balance is still a bit of an issue, all right? And his hand technique still needs a little bit of work, but when it is there, Roberts has some of the best highlight film in this entire draft, where if he can put those things together and you're saying, uh-oh, is this another sort of Trevor Penning situation? Maybe. I'll be honest. Look, Roberts, his footwork isn't the greatest either. He doesn't have the quickest of feet, so I get that. But man, he has those dominant flashes. Whether you're taking just any other player, like just take an interior guy here is my overall philosophy with this. Sometimes it's not always about the players. Sometimes it's about the positions. But Roberts, if he can put it together, if he can clean up some of his technique, he's going to help out this run game day one. I'll at least say that. Okay, so even if you're using this guy in a rotation as a sixth offensive lineman to help out in your run game, he is so freaking strong. He has that turn power and that drive blocking ability that this team is lacking. So he will definitely open up lanes to improve this run game, which has been a problem. So if you're talking about somebody that can come into your offensive line and if nothing else be a good run blocker, and that's something that Penning and Ruiz haven't even really done at this point in their career. So at least you're getting somebody that I think can help out in that phase. Maybe he'll be a liability in pass pro, help him out a little bit, but at the same time, he's going to help him in the run game, and that's something that this team has really struggled in. Next pick, I'm going Eli Stowers from Vanderbilt, and Vanderbilt's a fun team to watch. Texas took it to him today. I can't wait to see the highlights on that one, but Stowers is a guy with some solid speed. I don't think he's got elite speed, but he makes plays, and he's a yak machine. He's decent route runner. His size is going to be a big concern at the next level, and that's why I have him going here on day 3. I think he's a day 3 prospect. Just don't really know if that's going to translate. You see a lot of these guys because it's like, does he have elite speed? No, I don't think so. He is a good enough route runner. I think he can separate and do, he's got that twitchiness in him where he can create some, separation and stuff. So he's not like a stone athlete or anything like that. He definitely has some twitch to him. And he certainly has yak ability. But I do think his role is a little limited to a receiving type of weapon. He can come in there, though, with Daniel Bellinger, continue to develop as a blocker and as an inline guy, or even if you're just using him in H-back, that's fine. Maybe he can be a little bit of a Taysom Hill gadget guy for this football team, which, hey, again, that'd be cool. Him and Bellinger, you work it out, trying to get some help out in this tight end room with this 5th-round pick. Next one, in the 6th round, I'm going with Trey Moore, edge rusher from Texas, Hook 'em Horns, traded over, or well, he ported over from UTSA a couple seasons back, transferred, you know how it goes nowadays in college football. But Trey Moore is a guy that I think has a really high motor, doesn't have the physical traits, but definitely feel like he's going to be one of those guys that just has a nice, solid career as a good rotational backup. Wherever he goes, I think he'd be a really, really good backup and take some pressure and be a number 4 type of edge rusher. And that I'm totally cool with at this point in this draft. Next up, these picks I do have to emphasize because these are potential picks. Okay, so you could just go ahead and say stop the draft right now with Trey Moore, and I'm totally fine with that. But ultimately, I feel like they can get some sort of trade capital from Rashid Shaheed at least, at minimum. So one pick from him. Not to mention some of those other guys I talked about between Eric McCoy. Maybe that would be a 2027 draft pick that they would get for him. It depends on the sort of package that they could get for Pete Warner. That would be like probably like a pick swap or a 6th, 7th round type of pick sort of thing. And that's fine. These are not going to be early projection picks. We're going to keep it very, very balanced. Cole Brevard here from Texas, formerly Purdue. You know, Purdue always ends up losing their best players. And Brevard, very good run defender. He made a lot of plays at Purdue for just being a solid, stout player on the interior. He has that stocky, stout little build that you look for from an interior run defender. And that's what I'm looking for here with Brevard. He's not really going to be a whole ton of pass rusher. You know, he can get after the quarterback too. He's not like completely limited. He has a couple of moves in his bag that he can get after the quarterback with. So I certainly don't think Brevard is only a run defender, but he's going to make his bread and butter as a run defender, and that is totally fine. We need somebody to help in that regard and be a rotational player with some of the guys we've lost too. Final pick of the draft, we're going with Colin Wright from Stanford here. Wright is an interesting evaluation. I think he's got great ball skills and great instincts. He just is not a very good athlete, in my opinion. But he's got good length. I could see him moving into the slot for this team in the long-term future. He has experience in the slot and on the outside. He's playing more on the outside this season with where Stanford's at in their secondary. Wright, though, definitely has the ability to be that guy who, despite the athleticism, has enough instincts where I think he can see the field, if nothing else, as a fourth corner for this football team. And as I said before, maybe put him in the slot there. He's tenacious as a run defender, so I like that about Colin Wright. So he's somebody at the end of the draft. Why not take a chance on a guy like this? And as I said before, these picks are TBD on what they could happen or not. So take it with a grain of salt. These are not guaranteed picks. Let's go ahead and recap everything up here after the draft, free agency, all of that jazz. On the offensive line, we tried our best. Cap restraints are going to be tough. As I mentioned before, the philosophy on this is let's get this cap situation under control ASAP. Okay, we need to hit the reset button. If they do that over this next year or two, they can be in 2027. They can set themselves up really, really well. So if Shuck is, growing and getting better, then great. And 2028, we can continue to add fuel to that fire and just continue to rev those engines up. If not, 2027 comes around. Maybe you trade back in this draft class and you get more draft capital going into 2027's draft. You draft a quarterback then. 2028 comes around, that rookie quarterback, you able to do what the Drake May New England Patriots did. You surround that team with help, maybe new coaching staff at that point if they don't bring a new coaching staff now. And all of a sudden you're saying, whoo, okay, we got a window here, all right? We got the cap situation under control. We got a roster with some young talent. Okay, things are going. That's what I'm looking to do with the Saints team. In the nutshell, if you're just looking at a strategy, like that's my strategy. And in terms of what we did right now, Will Hernandez, John Simpson, at least can bring some sort of stability. You got guys like Jaden Roberts, Apani Laulu, who can develop behind those guys, Luke Fortner as well. And then a receiver, Casey Concepcion. As I said before, if you trade down, which would be great, you could also draft Carnell Tate or Makai Lemon, Jordan Tyson. I think those would be great picks too. Certainly different options that this team could go after. My ideal strategy, though, would definitely be to trade down if you can. Defensively, we got Arvell Reese in the first round. I think Reese is just so good and would be an immediate impact in the run game and in the pass game. We're going to have to rely on some of these young guys, such as Danny Studsman and, Quincy Riley. We draft Colin Wright as some depth, bringing Dave Alford there too. Definitely going to have to rely on these young guys stepping up and really taking that next level. Vernon Broughton, same thing. We're going to need him to take that leap going into year number 2. Let me know what you think. Agree or disagree. What would you do differently, though? New Orleans Saints fans, I hope you have a really good day. And there are better. I really think this team can get it together, but it is a little bit of a process. And it's something that they need to just say, hey, let's do this. Let's do it right. Let's get things together. Let's set ourselves up well for the future. So that's kind of where I'm at. Hope you guys have a good day, though. Let's go.